Hi, good morning once again to whoa, there we go, we're back. Um, to my live conversation I'm having here on Facebook Live, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or as somebody corrected me yesterday, Pacific Daylight Time, Matt. So today what I want to talk about is business, entrepreneurship. So what I have done in my career. I started off with big firms in finance, and then I went on to run my own company, and now I do business consulting, personal finance consulting, and investment consulting. And I you know, when I talk to business owners, a lot of times I pretty much hear the same things all of the time. Okay. And so I'll look at their pricing and I'll ask them where they're at, and they'll say, well, I'm competitive, or I'm on the high side, or wherever their pricing happens to be. And the product, whatever their product is, sometimes it's a service, sometimes it's a product. Most times it is kind of a mixture of both, right? Everybody sort of has a product. Whether you're service driven or not, you sort of have a product. Well, everybody always asks, where are we going to start? And it's always a very interesting question to me because, what they want to ultimately do when they bring me on board is they want to expand and they want to increase their revenue. And of all the questions I ask someone, and there are many that I ask, and it's rather casual up front, because what I really need to know, and what you need to know, so if you have a quality product and a good service, and or a good service, the next thing you really need to know is the it factor. The it factor is what changes every business, it changes every company. Forget about niche marketing and all the keywords you're going to hear about. And I'll talk about some of that stuff, in the coming days, weeks, years, whatever. But the first thing you really need to know is what your it factor is. And the truth is, most people that are running a business don't know that, and they're probably too close to their own business to know that, to be fair. You know yourself and you know what you're good at, but traditionally you've at least been running your business for a few years before you're talking to me. It's not that you couldn't bring me on from the start. You absolutely could. It probably would save you some time and energy, but the expense of it may not make sense. Who knows? It depends on how you're funding yourself, right? There's people that go out and raise a bunch of money to bring on the right team right from the jump. And so if you're in that position, then yeah, someone like me is a possibility. But if you're doing grassroots from the ground up and you're going to scrape by and build this thing, then you're probably going to wait, before you bring someone like me on. Now, let's talk about what the it factor really is. The it factor can be, and it is you, yes. Specifically, if you're a service, it's you. But it could be something in your product too. It could also be something in your field that really people are aware of and know about, but they're too afraid to implement. And this happens a lot with it happens a lot. So I'm working with Sankey Dojo in Los Angeles right now. It's a martial arts studio. When I met Tim, the owner, he was running. He did private sessions, right? He did private sessions, but he was running a lot of classes. He had a lot of uh, martial artists, like professional fighters in. He had just a lot going on. And as I got to know Tim and see how he interacted, the goal of that particular business and that business model when you're running classes, you really want to have 300 students. I mean, and if you can charge 250 a month, 350 a month, you're probably going to have 3 to 4 trainers, maybe a little more, that are running classes. Hopefully, they get a few personal, one-on-one private sessions as well, right? Hopefully that happens. But that's not your bread and butter. Your bread and butter is keeping those 300 students, paying, and keeping 300 students in the dojo. Now, a lot of problems go along with that, right? If you're new in martial arts, and Tim wasn't, he had been running his business for 24 years before he and I started talking. It may make sense just to learn the lay of the land, to hone your craft, like to figure out who you are as a person. But in Tim's case, when I watched the private sessions, the one-on-one sessions, it was very, very obvious to me that that was where his specialty lied. It was also a very meaningful way to eliminate some hassles, right? When you have 300 students paying monthly, that there's a lot that goes with that. There's a lot of customer service that goes with that. There's a lot of billing that goes with that. There's a lot that goes with a model like that. And I thought back to my days in finance. I watched a lot of guys take on, especially at Merrill Lynch, AG Edwards, Wells Fargo Advisors. Look, they took on any client that came down the road. They did. Most of those guys, most of the successful ones, had like 800 clients. They had no idea who these people were. They really didn't. You were a number. I mean, if they looked at your account once a quarter, you were lucky. And most of the time, they probably never pulled your account up unless they were selling you a new product or you called in with a question. And that's not knocking them. That's just the way that model works. How are you going to keep up with 800 people? There's 30 days in a month. Most of those guys are working 20 work days. If you have 800 clients, do the math. You're calling 40 new people every single day? You're not. That model sucks. It's terrible. And you can't do right by the clients. You can't. It doesn't. I mean, now that is not the same as running a martial arts dojo, which is really, we have turned more into a health and wellness center. But that was a long road, and I'm not trying to get into all that. What I want to discuss with you is when we were talking about expansion, that's why I came in, that's why Tim brought me in. It was very obvious to me that he was working long hours. I mean, the guy's in there working at 7 a.m. and he's looking at clocks at 9 p.m. And I'll bet you he was pretty busy most of the time. He was running I think he said at his peak, he was running 8 to 10 sessions a day. So 5 or 6 classes, 2 or 3 personal training sessions, right? We have since tripled the revenue at Zanke, and now he's doing 5 to 6 sessions a day that are extremely meaningful. Extremely meaningful, right? He loves kids classes and coaching kids. We've even taken the kids to a point where they're doing some private sessions, which in the long term is going to create more well-balanced, disciplined martial artists. They're going to be heads and tails above kids that are in classes doing 30 on ones, right? And with the adults, it's the same thing. When you have someone over you, showing you the inches, showing you the millimeters, it makes you better so much faster you can't even understand it. Your foundation becomes so solid that when you get in a room with other guys that are moving 6 inches at a time and jerking their body and flailing, and I know a lot of you have seen this if you're watching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're watching the tournaments. They're flailing everywhere, jumping everywhere, and flying everywhere. It's about control. Now, these are the things that I learned, and how did I learn those for Tim? Tim's it factor was Tim, and it was what he does for people, and it was his ability to teach in a one-on-one basis. Now, how do you even get to a point where you go, we're going to change a business model and we're going to expand? And by the way, we got slapped with COVID to boot. How do you get to that point? Well, the starting point really in all of this is finding that it factor, and everyone has it. There is no industry that is not every industry has people that are charging competitive rates, cheap rates, expensive rates. We're all flooded. How many marketing companies are there? How many financial guys are there? What makes the difference between someone who's successful and someone who's maybe even moderately successful? Because a lot of guys that are moderately successful, they simply work hard, and that will do it. You work 12 hours a day, I don't care what industry you're in, you're going to do okay. You are. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you have to figure out what makes you special. What makes your product special? And what price point should you be at? Because the truth is, there's an old saying that says, solve a problem for a lot of poor people, or solve a few problems for a few rich people or wealthy people. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That is a perfectly good business model. Both of those are very good. You might be in a product or service that if you if you automate it correctly, you end up being able to undercut everybody and taking all the business. And if that's your business model, great. But you also may be on the other side of things. So you're trying to competitively price yourself when you are a special product, a special service. You do a special something. So right now, for any business owners watching this, what I would tell you to do, your first step isn't evaluating your pricing model or your marketing or your sales. These are things that come down the road. The first thing you need to figure out is, what is my it factor and what business model suits that it factor? That is where your success will come from. That is where you start. And you start that by watching your clients/customers. The first thing I do with anyone I work with is I go in and I watch them work. Really. Whatever they do. I don't care what they do for a living. Whatever they do, I go in and I watch them. I just observe them. I watch their interactions. I watch how they respond. I watch how people respond to them. Because one of the real keys to that hidden juju is the people that you work for, the clients that you serve. They, in small gestures, fluctuations in voice, they'll tell you everything you need to know about your business, where you're going right and where you're going wrong, right? So today, that's what I want to talk about today. That's where I'm going to leave it. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, and I've done it all. I know. I've been doing this for 10 years. Well, that you may not know. If you're not making the money that you think you deserve, and most of the time it does come down to that, or if you are overworking and you're underpaid, you have to start over. What is your it factor? For me, I have an incredible ability to spot in another person's business what their it factor is. I also have an incredible ability in sales and pricing strategy. I'm very, very, very good at those two things. A lot of other things I'm pretty good at, but those two things, that's my it. Now, if I did not know that, and I just call myself a business consultant, I go in and I think I'm going to be an operations manager, or I think I'm going to show you how to automate all of your systems. Now, I know how to automate your systems, right? I work with businesses every single day. But setting up the actual automation and keeping on top of it, that's someone else's job. I know what you'll need. I can help you set it up, especially in the beginning, but where I am special is bringing out your special and helping you setting up your pricing and sales strategy to differentiate you from your competition, to let you spend more time living your life and less time on the business, which, look, balance is what it's all about. As everyone knows that watches me, I believe we are here to live a fulfilled, prosperous, happy, joyful life. And that's what I try to help people do. That's my it. That's what I try to help people do. Anyway, this isn't a pitch about me. This is a pitch about, for any of you business owners out there and any of you entrepreneurs, find your it. And if you're not sure that you can do that, find someone to help you find your it. All right, I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, Facebook Live, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Matt. And I go on Instagram Live at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.